Hi everyone, Hunter here, and in this video I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know to master Ball X Pit. This video is broken up into 6 sections, so if you know some of the stuff already, feel free to jump forward to the next section. We'll be covering the general gameplay, the individual characters, the balls themselves, the different levels, buildings, and finally some killer combos that you can use. The general gameplay. The gameplay loop is beautiful in its simplicity. At the basic difficulty, your character walks down a road for 15 minutes, shooting balls at oncoming enemy blocks. Your progression through the level is shown on the right hand side, and your health and experience are shown at the bottom left. You need to kill enemies before they get to the bottom of the screen, or else they will body check you. Like most games, if you lose all your health, you will die. When you kill an enemy, you will get XP, and eventually level up. On level up, you can choose a new ball, a passive item, or upgrade a ball or an item that you have chosen in the past. Periodically, enemies will drop an evolution item. This will give you the choice of either upgrading a random amount of upgrades, fusing 2 balls together, or evolving 2 balls into a new special ball. This is the real strategy in this game, as fusions and evolutions will make or break your run. I'll cover what I consider to be some of the more interesting combinations at the end of the video. A run ends after you've killed the 2 mini-bosses and the final boss of each map. The mini-bosses and the boss each show up at regular intervals and are represented by the skulls on the right hand side progression bar. After the run is completed, you are taken back to the city layer, where you collect resources, build buildings based on blueprints collected during your runs. The buildings do everything from improve your stats, to unlocking new characters, or even allowing you to have 2 characters do a run at the same time. Going back to the city layer between each run is really important, because you've got to keep your resource collection up to make sure you have the resources necessary to purchase the buildings when they become available. Characters. Ball X Pit has 16 characters, most of which do change the game's playstyle quite significantly. The warrior is the most basic character, with no game-changing elements. He rocks the spike ball, which does bleed damage on contact with the enemy. He is simple, but very effective. The itchy finger has an attack speed buff with a accuracy debuff, but he also doesn't get a movement debuff while he is firing. His starting ball is a boil of fire, which will have a burn effect when it hits the enemy. A highly recommended character, his accuracy debuff is not really noticeable when you are just sort of flinging balls against the wall. He also has some great synergies. The Repentant is the next character. He is the first one who really changes the rules. His balls deal 5% more damage after every bounce, but they return to you after they bounce off the back wall. It is a great ability, as more damage is always great, but it does mean you can't slip a ball in behind the enemy mass and just have it bounce back and forth between the back of the enemy and the top of the map, which is normally a way you would clear out a lot of enemies. He also has a freeze ball as his base ball, which is another really strong ball, which has some great evolutions. The Cohabitants is the first character that I do not really enjoy. They have the Brood Mother Ball, which has a chance to spawn small baby balls when it hits an enemy. This is good, but doesn't have the same impact or enjoyment as ice or fire. They are also two characters who fire balls in opposite directions, and each ball does half damage. So you get twice the balls, but you have much less reliable aim, and you don't really get a damage benefit. That being said, if you do manage to evolve or fuse their ball with something with an AoE effect, you can get some real damage. The Cogitator is another big changer to the game rules. He removes the player's choice from leveling up and all evolution options. And while this may immediately sound annoying, in practice it is just a random run, and it can show you some evolutions you have missed. His starting ball is also the vertical laser, which is one of the best balls in the game. The Embedded is another character with an interesting power. All of his balls pierce enemies until they hit a wall. This allows you to angle a ball into the middle of a group of enemies, then hit a wall, having it become solid and devastate the enemy lines. His ball is also the poison ball, so piercing through and hitting multiple enemies with a DOT ball is very good. The Empty Nester is an interesting character. She doesn't shoot any baby balls, but instead will send out multiple of her equipped special ball. I find this to be okay, but not great. I tend to feel like there was less balls being shot overall, and at times it felt like I was just waiting for my balls to return to me, so I could fire them out again. She does start with the Ghost Ball, which I find to be more of a secondary or combination ball than a good primary ball, as it is just a bit lackluster. The Shade is your assassin character. His balls fly in from the top of the map instead of the bottom, but are still shot in relation to where you're standing on the map, as if it was perceived from the top instead of the bottom. This means all your shots shoot the back of the enemy line, which is great, and has some awesome bounce potential. However, this does mean you are likely to not be able to kill an enemy that is in the front line and is about to hurt you. I have lost more runs with this character than any other character. He is very fun, and his starting ball of the Dark Ball is very high damage, one hit type of ball, but does not help overly in the early game. So you really need to rush out a good fusion or a good evolution to make this character work. Now straight into the Shield Bearer, which is possibly my favourite character in the game. He starts with an Iron Ball, which is good damage. However, his ability is what makes him. He has a giant shield, and when a ball comes back, you bounce it up. He is the character that makes this game block breaker. Every time he hits a ball, they also deal 100% more damage and move a bit faster. He is simple, but unbelievably fun. His character description doesn't say this, but he also appears to have a global experience pickup, which means he will pick up your evolution drops immediately, which can be problematic if you haven't leveled your balls properly. But other than that, great character, 10 out of 10, highly recommend. The Spendthrift, honestly a quite forgettable character. He fires his balls in an arc shot and starts with a Vampire Ball. Vampire Ball's a pretty good ball. It has healing, and it also has a few good evolutions. That being said, it's not particularly impacting, and the arc shot's kind of boring. I honestly can't remember playing this character any more than one time per level to get the building upgrades. Largely forgettable. I may be missing something, but if I am, let me know in the comments. The Flagellant has a really interesting ability where balls can bounce off the bottom of the map as if they were bouncing off the sides or the top. This helps create an awesome amount of chaos. He also starts with the Egg Sac, which helps cover the map in baby balls. He is a fun character to play just for the level of chaos you can cause, and he is one of the few characters that makes the cohabitants actually fun to use, as their starting ball and his starting ball have a really good evolution synergy. The juggler is what I consider to be the best character for doing duo runs. His ability allows him to toss the ball to a specific spot on the map where your cursor is, not just firing it from characters like everyone else. This lets you chuck balls into the middle of large groupings, or if you see a particularly problematic enemy, lets you actually actively target them down. He also has the lightning ball, which is an okay ball all round and has some pretty good evolutions. The makeshift Sisyphus is not just the character with the most complicated name to say, he is also another one that changes up the gameplay quite interestingly. He has an earthquake ball, which does a large AoE damage, but his ability means that balls do not do contact damage, but any AoE effect is increased by 4 times. As a large amount of the good evolutions have really strong AoE effects, this character allows you to just absolutely wipe a board. The Tactician, much like the Shield Bearer, has one of the largest impacts on gameplay. The Tactician stops the game from transitioning forward and turns it into Peggle. He makes the game turn-based. You can move, line up your shot and fire, but once you fire, your balls all go out in that direction, and then the enemy gets their turn to move, shoot, do whatever. It's a surprisingly good way to get a look at enemy movements and animations and abilities, as you're not trying to actively dodge because time is frozen. His starting ball is the Iron Ball, which is, awesome, fine, good ball, but his ability is the thing that actually makes him. The Radical turns the game into an auto-battler. He plays his own character. He chooses his own shots. He picks his own upgrades. You literally don't do anything. The only time you move this character is if you have him complete the final level, and then you need to walk forward to the end of the game. It's very fun to watch, and much like the Cogitator, he can show you some abilities or combinations of balls that you were not aware of. The only thing I'll say is his AI isn't perfect. I have seen him run into a corner of the map and just stay there instead of fighting the boss to try and hide from the boss's attacks. And also in the final level, the Void level, he will fire his shots repeatedly into a teleporter if there's an enemy sort of around it, which isn't great. But other than that, very interesting character. He starts with a wind ball, but you can't do anything with it, so, that's not really helpful to you. Finally, we have the Physicist. I unlocked this character last. I haven't checked if these actually go in order for everyone or if there is slight variation, but this is another one of those characters that changes the board state quite heavily. He turns gravity to the top of the map, so balls always fall towards the top and no longer bounce off the top of the map. This does mean that you can angle your balls well so that they sort of bounce through the front 2 layers before getting to the back, which is brilliant, but it does make aiming a little harder. He does also start with the light ball, which does blind enemies and has some very, very strong evolutions. So all in all, he is quite a strong character, even if he takes a little bit to get used to. Right, the balls, the actual way we do damage. There are 18 base balls in this game. Since I want this video not to be a full hour long, I'm going to group these a bit, as I feel like for the most part, other than evolutions, the groupings are kind of what's more important. You have your DOT balls. These are balls which apply some sort of damage over time effect, such as your bleed ball for bleed damage, your burn ball for burn damage. your poison ball for poison damage, and your earthquake ball for earthquake damage. Yes, earthquake is not a damage over time, it's an AoE, but we're going to leave it here. These all have the same sort of theme, applying a damage over time to the enemy. The amount of the effect varies from ball to ball, and it's not really worth mentioning damage numbers, as your overall stats actually will change these when you level up. You'll just eventually find your favourite DOT ball, usually related to what your favourite evolution is. Spawning balls. These are balls that spawn other balls. For the set, I've included the likes of your egg sac, which spawns baby balls, your brood mother, which also spawns baby balls, and your clone ball, which spawns itself. Spawning balls are all about filling the board with clutter, multiple small chip damages to the enemy, lowering their health down over time. The best way to use spawning balls is to actually fuse them with something that's got like an AoE effect or a damage over time effect. They don't really do very well by themselves, and you kind of need that fusion or some of the items that increase baby ball damage or baby ball spawn rate to really make spawn balls pop off. Straight damage balls. These are the balls that don't really have any special effects per se, but they are all just about hitting the enemy hard with single hits. These are your steel ball and your dark ball. These basic balls don't have any debuffs, damage over time, they just hit an enemy hard and try and knock him dead. Your debuff balls. In this category we've got your light ball, which blinds the enemy, the charm ball, which charms the enemy to your side, and the freeze ball, which freezes the enemy. I am going to lightly include the vampire ball because it has a health steal ability, but mostly because it doesn't really fit in any of the other combos. I find that the debuff balls are best mixed and fused with either a spawning ball or a piercing ball, so that you can hit as many different enemies with them as possible. Speaking of piercing balls, next we have the piercing ball. There are two balls which have traditional piercing. You have your ghost ball and your wind ball. They go through the enemy ranks, only bouncing off the walls or the top of the map. I'm also going to be including the vertical and horizontal laser ball in this category, as every time an enemy is hit by one of these balls, they fire a laser which goes across the entire board based on the cardinal direction of that ball. As not really traditional piercing, as the ball does not pierce, but it's my list, so feel free to disagree in the comments. These are our 18 basic balls, and we will be combining these in the runs to get your high tier evolution balls, which are what you really need to actually clear the map in any reasonable time frame. I will be discussing some combinations at the end of the video. Levels. This is the most important part for actual strategy. The game has 8 different levels, which all follow a very similar gameplay loop, with just some slight variations based on the theme of the level you're in. The Graveyard. This map is the basic beginning map. Most enemies don't have a special ability or power. This map sets up the standard of the gameplay, waves of small to medium sized enemies, with periodic ranged enemies mixed in, and 2 mini bosses followed by a large end boss. The first mini boss is usually just a melee sort of health tank, and the second mini boss begins to be quite similar, except it has a ranged attack as well. This sets the general pattern for every level. 2 mini bosses followed by a large unique boss for the region. For the Graveyard, The Skeleton King is the final boss. A large skeleton head with a crown with two giant arms that crawl towards you down the map, firing magical arrows and periodically shooting his fist out towards you. This boss's weak spot is actually the crown on the top of his head, forcing you to bounce the balls off the side of the map to hit him from behind, unless you have gone for a piercing build. As the maps are relatively similar, going forward I'm going to focus on the bosses and only really mention other small and irritating exceptions on a map by map basis. The Snowy Shores. The final boss of this map is the Ice Queen. This boss has a lot of variation in the attacks that she uses, more than the Skeleton King, but arguably is easier to damage because you don't have to hit her from behind. You can at times shoot straight at her. She does summon a few minions to assist her and has some attacks that are large sweeping AoE attacks that you must dodge, but they are really easily telegraphed and she is easy to dodge. She may be the easiest boss in the game. The Liminal Desert. The boss in this map is a giant snake with 4 phases of the fight. Phase 1 and 2 being relatively the same, him sort of spinning around firing lasers and doing a bit of bullet hell shooting. He also summons supporting enemies, a lot of which themselves have laser attacks. He has a fairly high amount of health and does start moving around the map, but since he doesn't actually have an invulnerability spot or phase, if you just keep sending balls down range, they will eventually hit him, so if you focus on dodging, you will take him out. It's just a matter of time. The Fungal Forest. This map has my least favorite enemy in the whole game. It has a mushroom which pushes other enemy pieces forward at a faster rate. This throws off your timing, can catch you off guard, and is genuinely annoying. Because of this, focus and kill this block any chance you get. But the annoying part of that is you usually have to kill the guy in front of the annoying block to kill that block. Now, with that all said, this map might have my favourite boss to fight, as it is just a grouping of regular enemy blocks working in unison. This is really great, because if you have a piercing build or a laser build, it just melts this boss. The only downside of this boss fight is it does spawn a lot of fodder enemies, so you will have to reprioritize and kill those fodder enemies before you can go back to focusing on the boss. Otherwise they will take you down before you can burn through the boss. The Gory Grasslands, in my eyes, is the most forgettable of all the maps. I've been trying to remember as I say this exactly what happens in it, but it kinda just fades into the background. I do remember that the boss is a large war truck type creature, which drops a lot of arrow firing enemies, tries to run into you, and fires arrows itself. It also does a charge towards you when it is dropping off its minions, which can do a lot of damage, and during the charge drops off many arrows. Since it will always charge towards you, you can manipulate it so that it is on one side of the map when it charges, allowing you plenty of room to dodge its arrows and clear its minions. I believe it will only do its minion spawning charge when all or most of the minions are dead. So if you leave 1 or 2 minions alive, you should be able to avoid the charge and give yourself a lot easier of a fight. The Smouldering Depths. This time we get a dragon, or at least the head and the neck of a dragon. This guy is relatively simple. He pops his head out from the top of the map and spits bursts of fire at you. He will also constantly summon small fodder minions on the left and the right of the screen. He is quite easy to dodge as the fire blasts don't travel particularly fast. However, if you do not kill him quickly enough, he will enter into a phase where he starts doing strafing runs. I believe he is invulnerable in this stage. Either that or he is just exceptionally hard to hit, and you have to dodge both him and his minions until this animation is done and he pops his head back in from the top. The Heavenly Gates. Another map where I feel I need to talk about the small fodder enemies. Some of them fly, so you cannot hit them while they are in the air. A couple of them also just grab your balls. I haven't been able to figure out if they hold them for a certain amount of time, or if it's until you kill them with a different ball to reclaim your ball, but it is particularly irritating and something to watch out for. The boss itself is a giant eagle that fires a bunch of arrows and flies around the map. As boss fights go, it's particularly uneventful. The fact that the boss flies and goes invulnerable can be a bit annoying, but there were no particularly strenuous or overly annoying points in this boss fight. The Void, the final map of the game. This has some of the weirdest looking enemies. Of them, many strange shapes that make bouncing the balls kind of irritating, and they also seem to be quite tanky. The boss is a large circular meteor type alien that I believe is the same creature that caused the start of the game in the opening cutscene. It's very tanky. It fires a mixture of blue homing balls and orange balls which it sprays out across the map. About halfway through the fight, the boss will also start moving around and continue to fire these balls, making it even harder to dodge and truly testing the dodging skills you've learnt so far. This is the hardest boss in the game, definitely, with a mixture of the bullet hell aspect and its tankiness. The plus side is your balls can actually destroy or damage his balls if you hit them a couple of times. This is the first and really only boss I feel like you need to plan for. I believe you should make sure you have one ball without piercing on you that you can use to shoot against his balls. I also think you should try and make sure you have some form of healing item like the vampire ball or one of the various items that let you heal instead of taking damage, or the damage reduction item, as you are very likely to get hit during this fight. It's actually quite nice to see that the final boss in this game is the hardest and the one that I don't feel like is an instant win no matter what I've got. So with that, you should have a pretty good idea of how to beat all of the bosses for each of the levels. Let me know which boss you found to be the most enjoyable, and if I'm right and the Void boss is in fact the hardest, or maybe you got slapped by the dragon somehow. The buildings are an interesting part of the game. Every map has a set amount of blueprints which you can find that then unlock buildings that give you different effects. The early ones primarily increase your base stats, and every area except the last one has a new champion for you to unlock as well. There are two types of things you build. One is resource collection points, and then there are buildings that you will build with the resources you have collected from these points. There is a harvesting minigame which is essential to use every chance it is available. You essentially fire your characters around your city map, and every resource they bump into, they collect some resources, and if there is currently a building being constructed, every time they bash into the building, they will do 1 to 4 ticks of build damage or build healing, depending on what their level is. One thing I would recommend doing is building all of your resources in one long line on one part of your map, and all of your buildings away from that. Then using some of your buildings to cordon off the resource area, allowing your characters to bounce backwards into the resources, making sure they collect them all, as there's no real benefit for having your characters waste their bounces on already built buildings. And you don't get an infinite amount of the resource gathering stage, so an inefficient bounce is actually a huge waste. I'm not really going to give like a full build order on what I think this building should go first or that building will go first. You'll figure out what playstyle you like pretty quickly, and whether or not you think your characters have enough of a particular resource. I focus damage really hard instead of speed or anything like that, because I just like seeing the big number. You're going to naturally want to build your new champion buildings immediately, but other than that, just go with whatever vibe hits you best. Final and favourite section. We're going to talk about what I think are the best ball combos and a couple of character combos to aim for. I'm not going to cover all of the great combos, because I think the enjoyable part of this game is figuring them out. That being said, there are some pretty obvious ones, so we are going to go through them first. So once you have 2 balls that have been upgraded to level 3, and you get an evolution drop, if these balls have an evolution together, you can then evolve them. The prime example, I feel, is the horizontal laser and the vertical laser. When combined, they become the holy laser, which is one ball that does both vertical and horizontal beams. Another couple of fun combos are the fireball and the earthquake ball, creating a magma ball, which does high AoE damage and spawns little magma mite things that crawl across the map. I believe the vampire ball and the egg sac create a bunch of mosquitoes, which heal you and can attack some enemies in amongst the middle of the group, which I find to be exceedingly helpful. And the other one to mention is a mixture of the light ball and the fireball, which creates the sun ball, which constantly deals damage to every enemy on the map. Now, while evolutions are a way to get the strongest possible ball, they are not necessarily the best ball possible. So, while there is the evolution option, there is also a fusion option whenever you get an evolution drop. If you have 2 balls that are at level 3 that don't have a evolution together, you can choose to fuse them. This fusion aspect is what really breaks the game. A prime example, you can take an evolution ball, such as the holy laser I mentioned before, and mix it with a different evolution ball, something like the magma ball. This creates a ball who burns everything around it and then blasts them with lasers. You can get a ball that has a poison effect combined with the sun ball, and now you have a ball which hits everything on the map and applies poison to it. Figuring out how to best use fusions is the real end game for Ball X Pit. Even something as simple as combining 2 unevolved balls, such as a ghost ball and one of the laser balls, will increase damage exponentially. If you have a ghost laser ball, you can now angle your shot so that the laser effect travels through multiple minions in a row, triggering the laser every single time. So with that in mind, sometimes it is better to get a strong early fusion instead of saving and trying to optimize your evolutions to the high tier evolution balls every time. This is even more important when you are playing some of the faster modes, where you probably won't get enough experience to upgrade everything to level 3, evolve it, upgrade it to level 3 again, and fuse it. You will just run out of time before you have to fight the boss. When it comes to character combinations, there are actually quite a lot that are very fun. I quite enjoy the Cohabitants and the Flagellant, as they both start with a baby ball generating ball, and the Flagellant's effect of allowing balls to bounce off the bottom of the screen, they just absolutely fill the board with chaos. The Juggler is kind of just great with anybody. His ability to pinpointedly drop your ball anywhere on the map is amazing, but my favourite is still the Shield Bearer. His effect of just bouncing balls back allows you to make up for the weakness of some of the other characters, like the Thrift Spend, or to a lesser extent the Itchy Finger, whose accuracy problems can be mitigated heavily by just bouncing the ball back at the enemy and not having to really worry about where you're shooting. I will say the game developers also did a really good job with the duo character play, as any character that will not work with a different character cannot be chosen. This makes run-ending combinations not exist, which I really appreciate, because there'd be nothing more annoying than thinking you've stumbled onto a cool little niche build and finding out it just doesn't work and breaks your game. I also really enjoy mixing the Radical with the Tactician and forcing the game to play a turn-based mode against itself. It's quite fun to watch, and it is how I've actually enjoyed my last couple of dinners recently. So I think that covers everything you need to know to master Ball X Pit. I've purposely left some things vague for you to discover for yourself, as half the fun with these type of games is figuring out cool ball or item combinations that you've never seen before, and then sort of figuring out what the best thing to fuse them would be to really break everything. So with that said, thank you for watching. I've been Hunter. This has been my first game guide style video. Maybe let me know in the comments if you found this helpful, or if there's some information about this game that you think people should know that I didn't cover or don't even know about. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. This is my first scripted video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Now go take this knowledge and fling some balls downrange.